DJ PK and BYU beat writer for the Deseret News. Jay Drew joins us once again. Jay, good morning.
Good morning.
Jay, big game. How big? PK's been hyping it. Biggest game ever. It'd be the worst loss. It'd be the best win. Would you like to throw any cold water into that at all? I mean, you got to be feeling some of it.
Yeah, I think it's up there. I mean, I think we were saying the same thing before the Texas Tech game, and everybody, locally knows how that went. So, but yeah, there's probably the highest stakes, probably the most on the line for BYU. And it just every game this season, it seems like it's kind of ramped up that way as it's gradually moved up, where they've basically now put themselves in a situation where a loss would be absolutely devastating to their season, to their college football playoff hopes, to the Big 12 championship game hopes. So it's up there. It's one of the most important in program history, at least in the Kalani Sitake era. If we were to put it that way, I think you wouldn't take anything away from the 1984 national championship bowl game that won them the national championship and other things. But at least in the Kalani Sitake era, I got to think this is probably the biggest game.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that if they lose it, it's, oh my gosh, they're 9-2 and this season sucks. But that's sort of where they're at, and we'll see. And hopefully for their sakes they win. I think that one of the things that was more, not maybe most impressive, but just impressive to me is clearly the Texas Tech loss was a deflating loss, and the manner in which they lost too. You can play them tough, and somebody's got to win, so you can still find some positives. And I suppose you can find a little bit of positive in their defense from that game, but it certainly was a downer. And then not just beating TCU, which is a halfway decent team, but dominating TCU. That was, from their perspective, as I looked at their team, a pleasant surprise to me that they owned that game basically from start to finish, which I don't know can restore completely the confidence you had going into the Texas Tech game, but goes a long way to where going back to Cincinnati, they should have a fair amount of confidence, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, watching them walk off the field there in Lubbock, my personal thought was that, man, this might spiral. The TCU game all of a sudden becomes incredibly important, and it looked like some of their confidence was nicked. Everybody except Chase Roberts, I guess should say, because he boldly said that we're going to see these guys again in the college football championship game, and so I think you're right, PK. That was very, very impressive what they were able to do against TCU. They kept their focus. Bear Bachmeier bounced back. He showed a lot in that game. I think in the past maybe some BYU quarterbacks would have started panicking a little bit, maybe not trusting their offensive line as much, not trusting some of the receivers. But Bear was he did run a little bit more than he did in the Texas Tech game, but he picked his spots. He looked absolutely great. He made a brilliant fake on one play that got him into the end zone with the fake pitch. So, this team has really good leadership. I know that's kind of a cliche and coaches throw out there a lot, but just from my own personal perspective, you got guys like Tanner Wall, and I mentioned Chase Roberts and Bruce Mitchell on the offensive line, and just you can go kind of down the list. But this is a team that seems to be able to handle adversity a little bit better than maybe some BYU teams in the past, including last year's where they lost to Kansas and they fell at Arizona State. So, I think they're well equipped to go into Cincinnati and make a much better showing than they did the last time out on the road.
Are you surprised that the line is like 2.5 points? What are people seeing? Because everything you said makes sense to me. It's stuff we've talked about. Before you came on the air, it all lines up, and all of that lines up to BYU wins by 7, 10, 14. I don't know. Maybe there's some late score. Who knows? But BYU wins at least semi-comfortably, not dramatically. But that's not what a bunch of the gamblers are seeing, so maybe they're seeing something that I'm missing. What am I missing?
Yeah, I've thought about that quite a bit too. I think first of all, Cincinnati playing at home for the second straight week, so there's got to be some comfort level there. They weren't blown out by Arizona. If you watch that game, they were in it to the end. They had a few things go against them. Also, from what I hear, I'm not an expert on Cincinnati's roster, but they're getting two key players back. I think they're getting their second leading receiver, I want to say, and maybe even either their first or second leading running back. So they're getting two key offensive weapons back. And then, home field advantage. I mean, they got big noon kickoff is going to be there, so that's going to rile everybody up. And I mean, in Lubbock, that was crazy. That crowd was that was one of the most, just, I don't want to say hostile, but just wound up crowds coming off, college game day being there in Lubbock. So I home field advantage, I tell people this all the time, is really big in college sports. I think it's biggest in basketball. I think that's where the advantage is the biggest. But in football, there is something to that as well. And I think Cincinnati's been looking forward to this game all season. I think the crowd will be pretty hyped. So I think there's some things that work in Cincinnati's favor. On paper, I think BYU is the more talented team. I think Cincinnati's quarterback, Sorsby, has been nicked up a little bit, and maybe a kind of a minor disappointment as opposed to how Bear Bachmeier has played for BYU. So I think I can kind of see, especially because it's a road game for the Cougars, why they're not a bigger favorite.
One of the things, if not the biggest thing that dismayed me about the Texas Tech loss was the amount of mistakes that BYU had made with obviously the punt situations, and you had drop passes, and that was stuff that we knew had been very much minimized in their other games, their close games, as they were able to make plays. Other teams were making mistakes. A level of concern that you might have that would be repeated, because that could be very detrimental to them having an opportunity to win this game.
Yeah, certainly. I'm sure they've focused on that. Being down there at practice, they've pumped in the crowd noise a lot this week, and they did before the Texas Tech game. But I remember after the game that I think it was A-Rod, it might have been Kalani, that said they had a lot of trouble with the communication, because of the crowd noise, with getting the play calls in to bear, and A-Rod said the other day that they think they've got that figured out, sorted out, and they'll be able to handle that more effectively than they did in Lubbock. I doubt it'll be as crazy and loud and raucous as it was in Lubbock, but Cincinnati Stadium isn't as big. Obviously, for the Bearcats, the stakes aren't as high, but that's certainly one thing they've got to figure out. Those false starts will kill you when you get behind the chains. That's kind of where the biggest impact I think the crowd makes. But then you can't make any botched punts on special teams like they did right off the bat that really put them in a hole early and got the crowd into it. So. Yeah, I think that's going to be huge for BYU. You just can't shoot yourselves in the foot, and if you don't do that, I think you're in a pretty good spot where you can pull this one out.
There've been a lot of expectations put on JoJo Phillips. He's a redshirt sophomore, and he still doesn't have 20 career catches. But, man, you just have to watch the guy walk across the field. I mean, he looks like a wide receiver supposed to look, right? And he's 6'5", and it does feel like he could break out at some point in a game that could be close. I know he had the drop at Texas Tech, but honestly, catching one more pass was not going to turn that game around. Has he had a couple weeks to scrape the rust off? Do you expect more out of him, or is this a little bit of a lost year? He's been out so long, and maybe expect big things out of him next year, or could he make a big play in this one? And what's your sense of where he is?
Yeah, I think they still have a lot of confidence in him. For that Monday weekly press briefing, they had him come out or talk to the media, which I think shows quite a bit that they still have a lot of confidence in him. A-Rod was asked about that Tuesday, and he said, JoJo was a lot better in game 2 than he was in game 1 in his comeback after missing 6 games. He's a confident kid. I think he'll be fine. He grew up more of a basketball player than a football player, and so he. I'm not saying that's, he's not a natural receiver because he's obviously had 2 or 3 years to kind of get acclimated to the college system. But I think they still have full confidence in him, and I think he's going to have a couple of good games here on the finish. Obviously, their top 2 guys are Chase Roberts and Parker Kingston, and then Cody Hagan might be back. I think he's listed as probable on the injury report that came out last night. So throw all that together. I think JoJo will have a few more catches that he's had leading into the game in the next 2 games, but he clearly isn't one of the top 2 priorities for Bear Bachmeier. And I'd even say that probably the 3rd priority would be Carson Ryan, the tight end. So I think that might be good for JoJo, where he's not focused on by opposing defenses. But I think coaches still have a lot of confidence in him and are always talking about his upside. But if you're on his side, it's time to put up or shut up. They've been talking about him for a long time, like you said, David. And now's the time to prove everybody in Cougar Blue right that he does have that great potential to be a big time college receiver.
I think last year on the defensive side, the breakout star was Isaiah Glasker. Now this year, can we say the same about Satawala?
I think so. The guy's a playmaker. He's made some great plays this year. Really, the play at Iowa State might have won that game for him. The way that game was going, the pick 6, and then obviously the pick the other day against TCU. But speaking of a guy who just looks like a college football player when he's out on the field for a safety, just has the size and the way he moves. He's a blossoming superstar, I think, and yeah, I think he's going to have a great career at BYU. Well, he's already on the path, but he's really a kid that's blossomed a lot. When he came into the program, he was really shy and not real. I don't want to say not friendly to the media, but he just didn't like to talk a lot. But now he's really comfortable in that role as well, and you can tell he's looked up to by his teammates, kind of one of those team leaders, even though this is just his 2nd year. So, yeah, I think the sky's the limit for that kid. I think if you look at BYU's roster, you start to wonder which of these kids can go on and play in the NFL. And I would think Satawala is right up there near the top of one of those guys that seemingly has all the tools that maybe can make it at the next level.
Because you're around the team so much, is there anybody else you're looking for to step up here late in the year? You think somebody might be on the verge of breaking out that the public isn't quite up to speed on, but you've heard about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I keep telling people they need another running back. They need somebody to step up there and help LJ Martin out a little bit. Obviously, with the injuries to Sione Moa and then Hinckley Rapati didn't get the year back, and the running back situation's been well documented. So I keep thinking, maybe it'll be Preston Rex. Last week against TCU, they went a lot with Enoch Nawahini. Not a lot, but when LJ needed a bit of a rest. So off the top of my head, I really can't think of anybody. I think it's curious that they haven't really found a second tight end to throw the ball to after kind of a fast start. They threw it to other tight ends besides Carson Ryan. So, but I think Carson Ryan's even going to get a bigger workload moving forward. So I would probably say him. We saw a lot more in the TCU game out of him, and I think moving forward, they're going to really rely on him a lot, especially with that red zone offense is so huge in college football. Is getting touchdowns instead of field goals. And when you look at that, and when teams start to key on LJ Martin down down when they're inside the 20, I think you really need a guy like Carson Ryan, the tight end, kind of like Isaac Rex used to do where you can get a guy that's bigger, can handle a little pressure from a defensive back and get open in that tight space in the red zone. And so I guess I would say Carson Ryan, look for him to have a big finish to the season.
Kevin Young, in his media availability, said he knows exactly what happened with Kennard Davis, and he's going to let the university speak. What do you know about it as far as what happened?
Yeah, I mean, first I got to say I've heard a ton of rumors and people saying things. I was there, or this person told me this and all that. So, me personally, I'm trying to stick to the police report and the court documents. So, but I have heard that if Kevin Young wasn't there when the accident happened, he was on the scene almost immediately. So when he says, I know exactly what happened, I think that's where he's coming from. Nowhere in the police report does it, the one that was actually the parts of it that were issued by Provo Police Department, does it say who caused the accident? Does it say anything about the other driver who received the ticket for causing the accident? It's curious that Kennard Davis did not receive a ticket, even though there was a two-car crash. He was not cited for improper lookout or reckless driving or whatever. So I only know really for sure what's been released in the police report yet, and there are other rumors out there. You guys probably heard them. There were other players in the vehicle. That's not in the police report. So as of right now, it's just one of those things that I think we just have to be patient and kind of wait until this information trickles out through the court system and then go from there.
Their team seems really shallow depth-wise, so that could be a fairly decent blow.
Yeah, they also lost Nate Pickens, the transfer from UC Riverside. They and now obviously with Kennard Davis, and then Keba Keita suffered some sort of a head injury. I guess you could call it a concussion. So Kevin said yesterday that Keba is showing good progress, or there's more positives than negatives. But I think if he's in concussion protocol after an injury that happened last Saturday, that it would be asking a lot for him to return. So suddenly they don't have a lot of depth at least from the guys that have played so far. They've got a pretty good bench, but guys that are really, really untested, including the freshman Xavion Staton. So, the game against Wisconsin Friday is probably going to be pretty tough for BYU, given where their shape of their roster right now.
Can AJ DeBonsa just put the cape on and just carry him? Just hop on Superman and let him. Let him ride. Yeah,
UConn. He's got to start faster. He's started fairly slowly in really all four games, even against Villanova in Las Vegas. So, and I think I think they've had a lot of time this summer to put in plays for him to give him, the isolation plays, whatever, to get him the ball, to get him free in space. So, you would think this Friday afternoon, 2 p.m., kind of a odd start time for a college basketball game at the Delta Center. But 2 p.m. Friday, I think a lot will be on his shoulders to kind of carry the load with those other guys out.
Jay, you're the man. We appreciate it as always. You headed back to Cincinnati?
Yeah, heading to Cincinnati tomorrow, and be the second time. I was there, whatever it was, 8 years ago, when Taysom Hill and Jamal Williams pulled out a win. I think it was 21-3 win. The big thing I remember from that game is Tommy Tuberville, who's now, I think he's a U.S. Senator now. He was Cincinnati's coach. And after the game was over,
he got into it with fans.
He got into it with a fan, and you remember, you guys, as you've covered a lot of games in your careers, you kind of remember odd things about games, and that's what sticks out in my mind.
Yeah, I remember it, and I wasn't even there.
Yeah. All right, Jay, we appreciate it. Have a good trip.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
There's Jay Drew. You can read him in the Deseret News covering BYU football. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Coming up next, everything you missed in this show. A lot of football, some hoops, and we'll get to that next. It is time now for the Slacker Radio headlines. If you're just joining the show, they're brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary. Call them at 801-210-6800. Visit the website at TrajanWealth.com. Multiple topics this morning. A lot of football. We just had Jay Drew on. We had Barry Trammell on. You can listen to them wherever you get your podcasts. KSLSports.com. YouTube, Apple, whatever. Why would BYU only be a 2.5-point favorite, PK?
Well, I think it's tough to win on the road.
There it is.
I think Cincinnati's a decent team. Obviously, the bloom was burst a little bit, or whatever that expression is, but they have 3 losses, 2 of which were very, very close. Utes clearly dominated them, and which is, I think, a large reason why Utah's getting the respect that I believe they've earned. And so with that in mind, man, I think that this game could go either way. I'm not saying it's literally a toss-up because I do favor BYU, but I think it should be close, and mistakes, who makes less of them is going to be going a long way towards winning. I mean, this is a tough game because if you look at it, going to Tucson was tough. Right?
Yep.
Well, I'm not sure there's a big difference between Tucson or the U of A and Cincinnati.
Oh, look at this. PK's applying logic, people. He has set emotion aside momentarily. You see Arizona's 7-3 and Cincinnati's 7-3.
And I watched almost that entire
Arizona
game. I flicked around a little bit.
Yeah, they just played last weekend.
Right.
The game was at Cincinnati.
It was, and it was in the morning.
And Arizona got the road win 30-24.
I believe it started at 10 o'clock.
And BYU went to Arizona. If you want to do the comparative score thing, BYU is a little better than Arizona. Arizona's a little better than Cincinnati.
Yeah. I think with the stakes being as high and this team losing 2 in a row, one of which was at home, senior day, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think this is a walk in the park. I think next week, obviously, I would go favor BYU much more
UCF,
than we do now.
bad team, at home, playing out the string.
Yeah, going to fly across the country on Thanksgiving.
The only thing I can see UCF is that they should beat Oklahoma State this week, and assuming that they'd be playing for bowl eligibility the final week.
Okay.
But BYU is the better team. BYU's at home. BYU would have plenty to play for. BYU.
It's all the marbles in this game, man.
See?
And then you basically turn back 3 teams that think they've got a shot, and they do right now, and you'd say no. I mean, yeah. And then that doesn't mean that those other teams don't have good seasons, but the ultimate goal would not have been achieved as long as you then follow it up by beating UCF. So I suppose maybe the line's a little lower, but I would go no more than 5.
I got to say I expected it to be between 7 and 10. But I do get the travel thing, and it's not a short trip. Traveling to Cincinnati is different than traveling to Arizona. It just is. And it can impact you. I think they caught a break with a kick time. I think it's the travel compounded by the 10 a.m. That's when you really start cringing. But I do think that Cincinnati's passing game hasn't been as effective the last 5 games as the first 5.
Sure, but they're getting the receiver back. They're getting the running back back.
And that
Pryor,
helps.
who did not play against Utah, so he's been out a number of games.
That helps.
2 games.
But Jay Drew figures out why Cincinnati. What stops Cincinnati? He knows what it is, and they have enough talent to execute it. We just had Jay Drew on, and you asked him about Falatau and his breakout season. And Satuala, I think he's becoming one of those pieces on the chessboard you just move around and like, okay, I got an advantage. Where do I want to?
He's become dominant.
Yeah. Where do I want to create an advantage? Because I just have to put him there, and then I have it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this team's really good. This team can't drive on us, but they have big play capability. Okay, well, you got a safety like this, you drop him back a few more yards. Nothing over the top. Keep it in front of. And if you need help in the run game, he can come up and make tackles.
Yeah, I think Wall can too. I think that you look at Jay Hill, he's a phenomenal defensive coordinator, and he also coaches safeties. and their safety play has been very, very good this year. And Satawal is a breakout dude, and he looks like he's got the frame and everything to get himself playing on Sundays for sure. I think the key to this game, as I've seen it, and I've seen Cincinnati live, and I've seen them play several times on television, is if they can apply pressure consistently to Sorensby. I think he's a little banged up, a little gippy, and if they're in his face and actually bring him down a few times, I think BYU can win fairly easily.
Now, first off, that's always an easy thing to say because he's a good quarterback. The best way to stop him is to get in her face and knock him down and sack him and never, ever. But in that Utah game, he wasn't stepping into throws. He was avoiding contact. So although it's always true, I think it's underlined it. It's so important right now. Okay. It's just so important. So I would absolutely circle that. But, I mean, that's the kind of detail that Jay and his staff are going to be on. And if that means, okay, we need to blitz a little more often if we're not getting the pressure with a 4, we always talk about Jay, and Riley always comes on and talks about Jay's halftime adjustments. So I just look at a team that when the offense has really performed, it was either early in the year or against a completely overmatched team or both. And I think BYU's defense is at a level. This Cincinnati offense hasn't looked good against defenses at this level. I mean, Arizona held them to 24. Utah held them to 14. You're right about they get guys back. They lit up Oklahoma State and Baylor, but I don't think we think much of those defenses. Even the UCF was a 20-11 game. So you got to go back to Iowa State and Kansas. Now we're back in late September, early October. And I forget the name of the Cincinnati Bearcats former beat writer who was with The Athletic.
Justin Williams, who came on and said, they'll carve you up if you're in zone, but man slows them down. Again, I think the offense will be doing enough, and the defense will be there. Now, again, it comes back to, and you can cite these quickly, big plays, mistakes, momentum swings happen in college football, a turnover, a bad special teams play, a lucky bounce. A 7 or 10 point game, it doesn't take much to flip it.
I felt like against Texas Tech, they had to play as well as they could play.
They had to bring their A game.
Of near perfection.
A-plus game.
And here I don't feel that way.
They're going to be able to block this front.
I mean, they're going to have to play well.
They struggled to block that front, but everybody struggles to block that front.
Yeah, everybody, because
they're really, really good. Multiple guys are going to play in the NFL.
Yeah.
In addition to talking BYU football, we had a few other topics this morning. The Utah Mammoth are back in action tonight. They've had a road-heavy schedule, and now they get some home games here. They've got the Vegas Golden Knights coming into the Delta Center tonight. 7 o'clock start. Hockey night in Utah starts at 6 o'clock here on the Zone.
The Vegas Golden Knights. They hate us.
We hate them. I don't know if there's any animosity there or not. That's Kansas City. You got to save that for another. There's no hockey in Kansas City, though. So.
Right, I know, but this is the closest team.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, I still haven't figured out who who Mammoth fans are really going to end up hating. The Avalanche are, Denver. There's a history of rivalries there. There have been times the Jazz and Nuggets have been pretty juicy. I can see that happening, especially because Colorado's good.
That doesn't
Vegas
exist.
is already one too. In the pros, it comes down to players and playoff series. That's what'll create it.
And it can come and go.
Yeah.
The Jazz had a nice one with Seattle.
Yep.
And then you get a big dog, like everybody hates the Lakers.
So does everybody hate LA teams, but the Kings have never had that kind of sustained success? They've had some success, but they haven't sustained it in the same way.
Right.
Few pro sports teams get to sustain it in the same way. The Lakers are in rarefied air.
I think what you'll see is when they make the playoffs and when there's some scuffles, then that'll immediately
that becomes the team.
Whoever it might be, and I have no idea who they would possibly play.
Well, the way they do the playoff format, the odds are it'll be somebody in their division. But you're right. Beyond that, who knows?
Right, and then if you have a scuffle, and then they have a scuffle again,
have a hotly contested playoff series, and there's more juice next year.
Yeah,
and that's just the Avs are in first place again. So I figure them.
We're just barely getting started here.
Yep. So Utah with 3 consecutive 3-2 overtime losses. See if they'll snap that and get a win.
It's kind of odd.
College football, nationally, we have talked about the coaching carousel. Sarkisian, there's rumors about him leaving Texas. He is not happy with that. Desmond Howard out on Twitter, and Sarkisian telling everyone go talk to him or go talk to the AD and quit paying attention to all the rumors.
So moving forward, when some Joe Blow decides to put something on social media out there, we all don't run with it like it's the gospel. Can we all agree on that? And if you have a question about my future with the University of Texas, ask me, ask Chris Del Conte. He'll be more than happy to take your call so that we can set the record straight, so that we can focus on our football team, which is really what we should be doing.
I agree with him. When some Joe Blow, that's fine. And I get why he'd be bugged.
Yeah.
I would be bugged if I was in a situation too. Desmond Howard puts out a video, so he's a little more than Joe Blow. And the final thing I want to say, or the second thing is, all right, Steve, I'm taking you at your word. All right, Chris, the AD, taking you at your word. So if I call you up and I ask, or in a press conference I ask, more than happy, which means you better not show me attitude.
We'll see.
Well, I'm going by what they say.
I know you are. I get his stress in like recruiting is really important. It's hanging the balance. It's just a couple weeks away and it's on and it never really stops. So it's kind of on right now anyway. And the transfer portal a month after that. And a rumor that was especially devastating, at least with Lane Kiffin, who we've also talked about this morning, at least that decision you would think comes pretty quickly. If he's going to go to LSU or Florida because of recruiting and because of the transfer portal, it's got to go pretty quickly. The problem with the rumors about Sarkisian is that it's about going to the NFL as a coordinator. Well, that's in 2 months. That could cast a long shadow over a lot of players' decisions.
Yeah, but I think that that's been mitigated somewhat because it's about cash. And if I get cash, Joe Blow, the guy who's starting the rumor, can be the head coach. So I think in Texas, they say, has tons of money.
Yeah, for the older guys, more important. They really have the future, and they get the money locked in. For a younger guy, maybe it's important, but I get your point. It has been mitigated a little bit.
I mean, you don't want it.
You still want to know who you're playing for.
And your administration, your fan base wants everything set because at least there's a couple of weeks there minimum that the hire isn't the coach hasn't been replaced, and everything matters. So you don't want it, but it's not like it's not overcomable. And if you throw some more money at people, sure, I'll go.
Former Ute kicker Matt Gay signed to the 49ers practice squad, and he'll likely be on the game day roster because Eddie Pinheiro has a hamstring injury. So former Ute could be kicking in the NFL this weekend. Was a Ram at one point, now a Niner. No room for that rivalry stuff in the pros. Who wants me? Who will pay me? Where's the roster spot?
Well, you're not going to be loyal to somebody who just
cut you and you're out of the league.
Look at me. I just got cut this week. Jeez, dog.
For the 14th time.
Yeah. You go crazy because you got fired once in Sacramento. I just listed 5 places I've been fired in this town. And the one place I wasn't fired, the Watchdog, 2 months into it, they said, you better look for another job.
Well, I was told that in this town when I'd been here 18 months also. So I can match that story. I can't match them all.
18 months versus 2 months.
I know.
That's a little bit of difference there.
Yeah,
I didn't even get a chance to prove myself. Usually they give you a 3-month grace period. I was out the door in September, and I started in August. And I had to pick myself up from the scrap heap when nobody believed in me.
And we're both ex-members of the pre-half and post-game show.
You didn't get fired. I got fired.
Literally no one talked to me. They suspected me not to show
I
up.
got fired.
Do you hear the words coming out of his mouth?
Were you hired? Were you on every night for a stretch there?
No.
It was intermittent, and then you were fired from the intermittency.
Intermittent fasting. Yeah. What they wanted, so they got worked. Their butts were kicked against Miami, and I think then they went down to up to Orlando or over to Atlanta or something. This is on a Friday.
We need someone to put a ladle in the pot and give it a stir.
This is a gospel true story.
No, this is.
They called Saturday morning, we need you.
Will you come down and explain why things are going so poorly?
So I had to put on a tie and a sport coat, which I had to borrow both of them, and drive down because I couldn't do it Saturday night because I'd already had plans, and I had to come down in a room on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock and rip the crap out of the Jazz that they ran in the evening because you boys didn't want to do it. That is the gospel truth. I've never told a more true story than that very story right now.
Call PK. And have him bring his fastball.
They sucked. I'd cut them all. Are we done?
We're going to the bin. Bring in the lefty.
True story.
DJ PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Your feedback coming up next. Time for your feedback. Question of the morning. Since the playoff committee chairman said BYU did not look good against Texas Tech, how much would it help if the Cougars run up the score in the last two games? Crazed Youth says it wouldn't.
We're not asking you. We're asking BYU fans. Crazed you. You're insane by definition.
Self-confessed insanity. Once you put crazed in front on your handle, there you go. I don't think it'll do any good to run it up on UCF, but there is an argument that if you beat a 7-3 Cincinnati team and it looks awesome, you can see where that would carry some weight.
Pulverize them. That's the goal.
First impressions and last impressions. They matter so much. Pulverize.
Yeah.
Annihilate.
Yes.
Lloyd says it'll help a bit. They do need to show, not that they can win, but that they can dominate a team. You get to make a chance, peaking by blowing out TCU and blowing out Cincinnati. At which point we would definitely expect them to blow out UCF.
Well, and blow them out. Absolutely blow them out. Yeah, that's what it's about, man. If that's what matters, and the committee chair said that it mattered, does it look bad? Didn't look good against TCU? Well, go ahead and look good against these two teams. And then see what you got when you go and play Tech if it gets to that point.
But Jason's borrowing trouble from the future. Yeah, but if they do win and then they play Texas Tech and they get blown out, what will happen then? 11-2, dominated by Texas Tech twice.
They're in trouble.
Yeah.
But because they've established a standard that they didn't look good, then look good. We're not asking you to beat Tech, just look good.
If BYU wins out, Jared says, makes it the title game and loses again and is left out, and Utah wins out and gets in, it'll be much more controversial than when Florida State didn't get in 2 years ago.
Wasn't Florida State
undefeated?
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
But because it's mitigated somewhat as there's fewer teams, so obviously. And Florida State hadn't been the same since.
They have not recovered. All right, DJ PK, we're out of time. Jake and Ben are next right here on The Zone.